Aisha Jatta, who will be moderating the panel discussion later, and Xavier Goyiria, who is somewhere in the room, I don't know, and he's being assisted by Clara Atoni. So before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge all our esteemed guests, delegates, and colleagues joining us both in the room and online, who we cannot see, but they're online, I assure you of that. Our program today will last for an hour and a half, and there will be translation in English, French, and Spanish. That is correct. And instructions about how to follow the interpretations are over there on the board. You can look to the board and see what channel to choose for your preferred language. So let us begin with a question for all of us to reflect on today. In crisis contexts, how can agriculture be a driver for recovery, resilience, and youth empowerment? It's supposed to be on the slide, but so you can follow with me. So I'll read it again. In crisis contexts, how can agriculture be a driver for recovery, resilience, and youth empowerment? So this morning, we've brought together diverse stakeholders, each with unique experiences and perspectives, and we're going to explore together how agriculture can serve as a pathway out of crisis and emergency situations. On your papers, on your tables, you should have colored paper and pens, and those are for you to note down your reflections and your proposed solutions to the question just posed. So whatever comes to mind throughout the program as they are sharing their perspectives, please do note down your perspectives, and these will be, and you will have the opportunity to share these during the panel discussion later. So for those following online, please use the chat box. There are instructions about how you can engage and participate in today's dialogue. So without further ado, it is my pleasure. Help me to welcome to the platform for the opening remarks, FAO's Deputy Director General, Ms. Beth Bechtel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to see so many of you here. And I want to say, for those of you who are not often visitors to Rome, this particular room usually gives me a little bit of stress and anxiety because it's where our very well-known program committee, made up of our members, always meets on a regular basis. And that is often, I'm seeing some smiles on some of my colleagues' faces. They know what it feels like to be in this room with our members very much questioning and having very serious conversations with those of us in FAO leadership about our work, about our impact, and about how we conduct ourselves. And I think while maybe the tone today is a little bit more friendly, perhaps, I hope, we're in a room full of people who are here together for the right reasons. I think having conversations about how we work, about our impact, and how we find new and different ways to collaborate are equally as important for today's discussion. So again, it's very nice to see so many of you, especially our young youth representatives who are here. And I know many of you from places where life and livelihoods are under extraordinary strain. And I want to make sure that those of you who are coming from these places realize that we recognize the challenges that are being faced. I think we often say, and certainly it's a highlight of our youth forum, of the World Food Forum itself, that young people are the future. I don't think that's really quite the right way to frame your role in today's current dynamics, because you are the present. You are here today, offering different ideas, different ways of thinking. And when we say you're the future, there's a bit of a space in between today and tomorrow, now and then. And you are already drivers of social change, of creativity, resilience in your communities. And I think we see that very clearly as the subject for today's discussion is you are showing all of those things when you are given the chance to lead through agriculture specifically and through agri-food systems. I've had the great fortune of seeing this determination firsthand. Young women and men who are finding ways to rebuild, to oftentimes replant, and reimagine their futures, even when everything around them seems to have collapsed. And I think we oftentimes overlook just how challenging the scale of today's crises and conflicts are, especially on young people. Today, nearly 300 million people are suffering from acute hunger, driven by conflict, by climate extremes, by economic shocks. And we know these crises, very unfortunately, are today protracted. They're lasting too long, and they are overlapping with one another. And for young people, these crises strike at the foundations of their futures. It's their education, it's their health, their nutrition, and oftentimes their inspiration for what comes next that is often either taken away or becomes one of the heaviest burdens that can be carried. Yet despite it all, young people keep showing up. And I think that's so inspiring to all of us. You keep leading, you keep working, you keep learning, and you keep adapting. Lessons that each and every one of us should be taking in the face of what is oftentimes a really complicated, stressful, emotional period of time that we find ourselves in. And what I love about meeting so many of the young people in the countries that I get to go to is that they are farmers. They are livestock herders, they are fishers, they are business people, they are processors, they are vendors, they are entrepreneurs, and at the end of the day, they are consumers. They take risks, they innovate, they invest, and they teach each other and us new ways to strive and thrive. And even when a conflict is all around, even after floods or droughts, I do think that it is the young people of today who still find ways somehow to plant that literal seed, and sometimes simply keeping and planting the seeds of hope. In fact, in these protracted crises, over 80% of young people find work or employment in agri-food systems. That's not just a number, that's proof that agriculture is a pathway out of crisis and into stability. And at FAO, we see this every single day. Agriculture is about more than just producing food. It restores dignity, it sustains families, and gives structure and purpose in the midst of chaos. This is why I think in many cases, we at FAO are trying to find new ways to change how we work, to truly center youth priorities and leadership. You're going to get to hear a number of cases from colleagues who are here, who are demonstrating that in our field offices, in the way that we deliver very specifically. And these are really important shifts to how we work. As I close, let me make just a couple of important points that I often make in audiences, whether I'm with national governments, whether I'm with investors, international financial institutions, or colleagues inside the UN system. It is really important that we move away from considering certain constituencies, whether that's the young people of today, whether that's the farmers of today, as beneficiaries. A lot of people in this organization know how little I like that word. Because to me, it signals that we are not truly recognizing certain constituencies for what they can actually deliver, what they can do for themselves, and how they want to be perceived. Young people need to be recognized as leaders and the best decision makers in their own lives. And we also have to, I think, measure success differently. Today, for FAO, we need to move away from considering our success in delivering agriculture as only the number of seeds distributed or hectares revitalized. But we've got to focus on productivity, on profitability, and decent jobs that are created. Because opportunity, especially for young women and men, is what turns humanitarian relief into genuine recovery and lasting stability. This, to me, is what leaving no one behind really means. It is about creating space, regardless of the circumstances and dynamics around us, for young people to achieve their own goals and to shape their own futures. I'm very excited to hear from all of the panelists, to learn from your experiences, to hear your solutions and your vision for what's possible. And please count on FAO to be an important partner, a convener, and I hope also a very significant collaborator with all of you to do our best to expand and bring more opportunities for success in a number of these circumstances that are, again, quite unimaginable. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you to our panelists.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Beth, for those encouraging words, but also giving us an overview of what's happening around the globe. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit and look a little closer from a country level perspective. And to help us do that, first we have Chenkwak Awan from South Sudan, who is a youth representative and also recently appointed National Youth Chapter Lead for South Sudan. He will be bringing and sharing his experience as a young person. Thank you so much. And then, speaking from an international organization perspective, we have the privilege of hearing from Ms. Yuka Makino. She is the FAO representative in Myanmar, and she has vast experience as well. So over to you first, and then we'll listen to Ms. Yuka. Please let us encourage him and welcome him to the panel.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and my fellow youth, the champion of agri-food system. Yes. Good morning to all of you. It's an honor to join you today in this special session. It is very important to people like me who are from fragile states to discuss the importance of agri-food system transformation, especially when young leaders are taking the role. With this opportunity, I would like to say that agriculture can, and it has already opened the pathway for young people, and it provides opportunities for youth in fragile state like my country, who are living in crisis context, and I speak from the experience as a grassroots advocate. As a young person from South Sudan, a country where agriculture is a cornerstone and the future for the development of the country, we are so resilient in our determination to make food security a priority, especially from the government side to the international partners and also to the grassroots youth movement. My country is a country where agriculture and resilience are together. We are deeply able to live with such kind of coexistence between the struggle for food security and the struggle for peace. So to me, I think they intertwine with the struggle for peace building. It's also that majority of young people, 73%, are below 30 of the population. Yet many of these young people face extraordinary challenges that threaten both future and the ability to thrive. There are a lot of challenges that we are facing, starting from recurring conflict, climate-induced disasters, displacement, and limited access to education or employment. Floods and droughts destroy crop and livelihood, while cycle of violence and poverty continue to restrict young people from having a chance to build a stable future. In such environment, youth are often caught between survival and despair. Some are pushed toward migration, of which it's very unfortunate to see some of my fellow young taking the desperate journey to Europe. This is the result of lack of peace at home and also the food insecurity. Some are pushed to conflict not because they want to fight, but because they have no alternative. But if we can make agriculture a viable livelihood, if a young person can see the cultivated the land or running a small agribusiness, it will offer dignity to them, where they can see income and stability that make peace more profitable to them. Agriculture, therefore, is not only an economic activity, but it is a peace strategy. It provides young people with a sense of purpose and belonging, and in doing so, it transforms them from potential drivers of instability into a catalyst for peace and resilience. And that's why I believe in our intervention as young people from the fragile state, including other countries, that we must integrate food security, resilience, and peace building through youth-centered intervention. That youth-centered intervention should be the key word for today, because this office is our livelihood as youth from fragile state. The office of resilience, emergency resilience, is a key to our livelihood as young people from fragile states. This intervention should not be treated as a separate objective, but as a holistic approach. Food security offers stability. Resilience gives communities the capacity to recover and adapt, while peace building ensures that this progress endures. In South Sudan, we have witnessed how programs that blend these three dimensions, such as FAO, and I'm very happy that our FAOR is here today. It showed that the FAO, Resilient Building and Livelihood Recovery Initiative, that has been taking place, has shown a significant solution in rebuilding communities from ground up, but the success also depends on critical factor, which is the meaningful inclusion of youth. When youth are involved as a co-designers, not just beneficiaries, the results are transformative. And I'm happy you will hear more from him later when he gives the result. This belief lies at the heart of my work as the World Food Youth Chapter Lead, and also as the youth advocate for the last 15 years, which I have the privilege to lead at the chapter. Our chapter unites people across the region and background to reimagine agriculture as a driver of peace, innovation, and empowerment. We are very young as a chapter, but I believe and I'm happy that we have really did a very massive job in these 3 months. We focus on amplifying youth voice in food system transformation, connecting them with opportunities, and also providing them training, entrepreneurship, and dialogue, which is the key for the chapter in engagement and mobilization of young people in agricultural transformation. I see a generation that is ready to turn the page from crisis to opportunities by leading the transformation of food system in fragile state. But to make that happen, we need the policies that secure the access to land, finance, and also to technology. We need to integrate agricultural education into emergency and recovery program. We must recognize youth not as a problem, but as the solution, also as partners in building resilience and peace. In South Sudan, we say peace cannot grow without food, and food cannot grow without peace. I would add one more truth to that. Neither can grow without youth. We are the solution to both the food and peace. But with you leading the way, we nurture both peace and prosperity from the same soil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Akwa. Thanks so much. I'll continue my moderation from this seat because it's more comfortable. But over to Ms. Yuka Makino, joining us remotely all the way from Myanmar.
Thank you, Natalie. My name is Yuka Makino. I'm the FAO representative here in Myanmar, and I'm very honored to be following the youth representative from South Sudan, Chen Awan, and his inspiring words. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak after you. So to give you a brief background of what is happening in Myanmar very quickly. So we had a coup d'etat on the 1st of February in 2021. So we've been under conflict for the last 5 years. We also had a recent earthquake of 7.7 magnitude, which caused a lot of destruction in the central part of Myanmar. And so now focusing on the youth in Myanmar, there are 5 crises that the youth in Myanmar face. One is, because of the prolonged crisis, they face forced conscription. They're abducted to be recruited into the military or the People's Defense Forces or all the hundreds of armies that are fighting against each other right now in Myanmar. They have arbitrary arrests. They're victim of airstrikes. Their houses are being destroyed or burnt. Their schools, the hospitals are being burnt and bombed. More than 5 million youth can no longer go to school because of this conflict. Many are being forced to leave the country because 1/4 of the youth have lost their jobs. They face anxiety, fear, and there's a peak in mental health issues, and there's an increase in drug use in Myanmar. We are one of the largest producers of drugs in the world. 1/3 of these youth make up the agricultural workforce in Myanmar. But 9 million of these youth are leaving the rural areas due to lack of opportunity, due to conflict and political instability. In my project sites that I have visited all over Myanmar, there are no youth left in the villages to carry out agriculture activities. There are no youth left in the villages to carry out even the maintenance of reservoirs. And so what are we doing in Myanmar? There are 2 biggest things I think we can do in this very complex environment, as Beth explained earlier. One is, first, we have to help these people help themselves, as the previous speaker said. One is, first, we need to make sure that they get the emergency agriculture inputs first, so that they're not selling their homes, not selling their land, not selling their agriculture equipment just to buy food. And so that is extremely critical at the very entry stage. And then, as our previous speaker mentioned, we need to focus on building resilience. One of the key things that youth face in communities right now during conflict is lack of access to finance. And one of the key things we're doing is helping communities build savings and credit systems. So instead of microfinance, where the money leaves the community savings and credit systems keeps the money within the community, and so that they can use the profits and interests that are got gained from this savings and credit. And then with this, we couple it with technical assistance on agribusiness development. We have groups that have developed noodle production, peanut brittle, sesame seed oil, things like that, fish crackers, which they can sell in the communities. And right now we're linking them up with larger agribusinesses so that they can actually access markets outside their communities. So this gives hope and the livelihood and the finances needed for the communities and the youth to be able to continue to stay in the communities and help their families and stay with their families. So as our previous speaker mentioned, it is extremely important to work with the youth in the communities so that they don't have to leave the communities to find work and employment outside. So thank you, and thank you so much for your inspiring work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Yuka. Thank you so much. Actually, youth around the world have echoed what both Yuka and Chenkwak have said. So let's watch this video together and hear what some of them have to say.
South Sudan, they face numerous challenges which are the barriers to agriculture. For example, in terms of conflict and security leads to displacement of the youth.
Під час початку повномасштабної війни ми евакуювалися в Дніпропетровську область. Перше, що я побачив, це що вся техніка розбита, деякі екземпляри повністю знищені.
Horiin baay'inaan kun beekamu uummati Booranaa horsiisee bulaa waan ta'eef wanti inni qabuyyuu Oromoo keenyati. Loon re'ee gaala horii immoo loon irratti baay'ee boniin hora qicee jira.
What we should invest in are mostly the rural infrastructures within the country. As the government, they should ensure policies which are favorable to the youth. And whenever they are developing policies on agriculture, they should include the voices of the youth or the youth.
З 23-го року працюю в гуманітарному розмінуванні, що якби допомогло внести якісь кошти в відродження підприємства. І в 25-му році ми вже отримуємо перші врожаї, перший плід нашої праці спільної з ФСД. І маємо непоганий результат для початку.
You need to skill them so that they know the modern way of farming. They know the things to do with the agribusiness and modern way of farming. If they produce their crops, how do they find market?
Comme solution à cette difficulté, nous proposons un accès facile au financement, aux terres et aux intrants agricoles. Nous avons aussi besoin de formations pratiques adaptées à nos réalités, ainsi qu'un appui des mentors et des incubateurs. Pour cela, nous avons besoin que tout le monde soit conjoint à travailler ensemble pour le développement de l'agriculture ici et nourrir toutes les communautés et former plus de jeunes possible.
khilaafaad dagaalo inay yihiin kuwa u kici kara wax ka bedeli waxaa jira marka marna waxaa loo adeegsan karaa dhalinyarada si positive ah marna waxaa loo adeegsan karaa si negative ah.
Well, as you can see, young people have a lot to say. Up next is yet another inspiring young voice, our keynote speaker joining us remotely as well, all the way from Gaza, Baha Zakut. Baha is the Director of External Relations and Fundraising with the Palestinian Agriculture Relief Committee, and we're privileged and honored to have him join us today. So Baha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, today I stand before you not only as a speaker, but as a messenger carrying the heartbeat of Gaza. It is the heartbeat of its youth who refuse to surrender and of its farmers who transform shattered soil into seeds of hope. It is my true privilege to stand before you today, carrying with me the voices of young people from Gaza. Voices that speak not of despair, but of resilience, dignity, and hope. In times of war, everything is tested, our homes, our families, and even our sense of tomorrow. But through it all, one thing remained a lifeline in Gaza, which is agriculture. The land in Gaza became more than soil. It became survival. It became identity, and it became a way of saying, we are still here. During the Gaza war, young people in Gaza stepped forward with courage. They cleared shattered fields, replanted what was lost, and even turned rooftops and small yards into gardens. They did not wait for conditions to improve. They acted because feeding their families and communities could not wait. This was not just about growing food, it was about holding on to life itself. Every seed planted was a statement of resilience. Every harvest, however small, was a symbol of defiance against despair. And through these efforts, young people showed us something remarkable. Even in the harshest crisis, agriculture can give purpose, restore dignity, and open the door to recovery. The lesson from Gaza Strip is clear. Resilience is real, but resilience alone isn't enough. Youth and farmers should not be expected to endure without support. What they need are tools, opportunities, and recognition. When they have these, they do not just survive, they lead, they innovate, and they carry their communities forward. This is why agriculture matters so deeply in crisis context. It's not only a way to meet immediate needs, it's also a pathway to long-term recovery, to peace, and to stability. And when youth are the center of this work, agriculture becomes a bridge between today's emergencies and tomorrow's future. So, what are young people in Gaza and in all crisis settings everywhere asking for? They are not asking for handouts. They are just asking for the chance to build, to use their skills, to cultivate not just the crops, but to cultivate their futures. And our responsibility is to match their resilience with commitment, to invest in their potential, to ensure that agriculture in crisis setting isn't seen only as a temporary fix, but as a foundation for dignity and peace. The story of Gaza isn't unique. From every corner of the world where youth live through conflict, climate shocks, or displacement, we hear the same message. Give us the chance and we will lead the way forward. Let us listen, let us act, and let us build together a future where resilience is not simply admired, but supported, nurtured, and it transformed into lasting change. Friends, history does not honor resilience left unaided. It honors resilience transformed into renewal. Let us choose to be the generation that stands with Gaza youth and with every young person in crisis, so that their courage is met with opportunity and their hopes are met with action. Because resilience on its own is survival, but resilience with support becomes progress. And progress is what turns broken fields into green harvest, despair, despair into possibility, and temporary endurance into lasting peace. So let us walk away from this gathering not only inspired, but resolved to invest, to act, and to believe that even in the harshest conditions, a human dignity can and must prevail. That is the promise of Gather Youth, and that is the challenge before us all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Indeed, resilience with support becomes progress. Everything we've heard so far sets the stage for what comes next. We will be hearing today from our panelists. So we're going to move into the panel discussion, which features young change makers, government representatives, resource partners, and of course, technical experts as well. They're all coming together to explore actionable ways forward for young people in youth in crisis settings. So Aisha will introduce the panel and lead us through this session. Over to you, Aisha.
Thank you, Natalie. Hopefully you can hear me all. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll now dive into our panel discussion, like Natalie just mentioned. And I'll first introduce them all so you get an idea of who they are and all their amazing work. So I have the privilege to be sitting here today with Derek Markwell, Head of Humanitarian and Development and Deputy Development Director on Syria at the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. I also have the privilege to be sitting with Faisal Ali, the Senior Advisor to the Ministry of Livestock, Forestry and Range of the Federal Government of Somalia, Judy Kipkenda, Executive Director of the Kobatek OJEC Women and Youth Network in Kenya, Meshek Malo, FA Representative of South Sudan, and Yina Paula Esquivel Ariola, Community Leader in El Aguacate Village, Guaranda, Colombia. I will encourage you all to put on your headphones, and I will do that myself as well because Yina will be speaking to us in Spanish. So I will start with you, Judy. Judy, the OJEC community in Kenya has experienced displacement, land and water conflicts, and food insecurity. Can you share what these challenges look like in your daily life as a young OJEC person?
Thank you so much, Aisha. Just point of correction, it's Ogiek, not OJEC.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Judy Kipkenda. I come from the indigenous peoples of Ogiek. We are found in Kenya, the biggest forest in Kenya, Mau Forest. I speak to you as a young person first, and as a woman second. I also speak to you as a person who experienced a crisis firsthand. When my family was evicted, just a minute. Okay. So Koibatek Ogiek Women and Youth Network is an organization that works with women and young people from my community, people who faced the same thing as me. I was composed and I had so much to say, but I'm just trying to. So when we talk about crisis or conflict, my context is very different. First, because as an indigenous person, and secondly, as a woman. In terms of conflicts and crises, it is the women and young people who suffer most. And having seen that firsthand, it drove me to start this organization where the most immediate and important thing was survival, food security. In our context, it starts with land insecurity. Land insecurity means there is no food security. And without food security, it also means there's conflicts. I will fight to eat. And when I fight to eat, it becomes a whole big crisis because it will not only affect me and my neighbor, it will spill down to other people. So I grew up in a small village known as Eldamaravin. Sorry, I hope that's not another crisis. It's okay. So I just wanted to paint a picture of my community according to your question. Eviction started, the Ogiek community is a community that has been evicted from our ancestral land over and over from all existing regimes in Kenya. Every regime has tried to evict us, and they keep evicting and pushing more people outside, and as we speak, there are over 700 families who are living by the roadside. The town that I come from and the neighbors that we grew up with, most of them are still squatters along the railway line. So when I looked at this crisis, because actually it was a crisis by the time I realized that I needed to step up and do something to ensure that the most important things like food has been resolved, I realized there were so many other intertwined issues. We should not just look at crisis. Okay, we should not just look at food insecurity as the only thing that stands out during crisis. There was food insecurity. Our kids were not going to school. There was the biggest issue that we oftenly overlook, the issue of mental health rights. Yeah, a lot of people are committing suicide. You are not able to provide food for your family. you're not able to educate your kids, and the circle of poverty continues. So what did we do? And I don't know if I'm overstepping to the next question, but we had to think of being the solution. We keep saying, help us, we need help, we need food, we need relief. But it came to that point of realization that, first of all, we are a minority community. We are also a marginalized group in our country. And so help was not coming from anywhere. We had to become our own help. And that's when we started thinking of how do we go back and think of how did our ancestors used to live? How did they survive? There was no government, there was no relief. They survived in our forests. So first things we thought, we need to restore our home the way it used to be. And that's the only way we can convince the government to allow us to go back to our forest. And we thought of revitalizing our indigenous seeds so that we are self-sufficient. We don't need to go back to the agrovets to purchase new seeds. And then in the small spaces, we are squatters, fine. But in the small spaces, can we produce food that is more sustainable, that does not require any inputs, but within the readily available resources? That's why we've adapted agroecology. We are doing seed banking with the women and young people. We are trying to be self-sufficient. And I just like what my brother from Gaza said. We are the solution to our own problems. And the only thing that we would need is not relief, is not help, but just more support towards what works for us, our own solutions, not solutions from elsewhere. I'm not only speaking about my Ogiek community. As I speak here, I'm speaking about many other indigenous communities, especially in Kenya. We have communities that have been displaced by rising water levels. And when we are talking about conflicts, it does not really have to be about war. A lot of conflicts in my area, my community, because we get a lot of overlapping conflicts from nearby communities, mostly who are, unfortunately, indigenous peoples, pastoralists. I come from a hunter-gatherer community. But you see, because of scramble for natural resources like pasture and water, and most of these have been brought about by climate change. I don't need to go deeper into climate change issues because we all know how it trickles down from the polluters to us indigenous peoples who does not contribute nothing towards this. So the issue of conflict within our area or within my context, it's not just a conflict, it's now really a serious crisis that we need to look back and see, why are we not the ones giving the solutions? Why does solutions have to come from this kind of rooms and be brought to us? Let's start thinking on, why don't you come and ask us what worked? What do you think works? We give you the solution. If you want to support us to be resilient enough, support the solutions we give.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us and for sharing your experiences. I think what you mentioned is what all of our young speakers have mentioned already. You're being directly impacted by all the various drivers of food insecurity. And I think I want to hear maybe from Yina now. In Colombia, Yina, your community, El Aguacate, has faced both armed conflict and devastating floods, climate change-related impacts that Judy also mentioned. How have these shocks impacted your community, and what particular challenges have rural youth faced as a result? I hope, Gina, you were able to understand that.
Buenos días para todos. Mi nombre es Gina Esquivel, vengo de la vereda del Aguacate del departamento de Sucre de Colombia. Estamos ubicados en la zona norte de Colombia, ya a lo lejos de aquí, de esta gran ciudad. Y durante los últimos 20 años, nuestras comunidades han sido atacadas no solo por las fuertes inundaciones, sino también por el conflicto armado. Esto nos ha dejado grandes secuelas y grandes compromisos, y vernos delante de todo esto vulnerables, que nuestros jóvenes o nosotros como jóvenes somos los que realmente sufrimos todos estos grandes impactos. Estos conflictos son los factores que nos han afectado tanto a nosotros porque nuestro principal ingreso económico es la agricultura y la pesca. Son las principales bases fundamentales de nuestra economía y debido a las inundaciones y al conflicto armado, nuestro territorio se está perdiendo. Las familias tienen que emigrar a municipios y departamentos los cuales no nos brindan seguridad porque somos personas del campo y que estamos acostumbradas a vivir en el campo y vivir del campo. Por eso que nuestros jóvenes se han visto gran afectados porque no tenemos oportunidades, falta de estudio, falta de conocimiento, falta de dinero, falta de ese nuevo empoderamiento que una vez nos llevó a que nuestros familiares pudieran subsistir en el campo, hoy están demasiado perdidos por todos estos conflictos. Gracias a este conflicto, todos los jóvenes muchas veces se han visto involucrados a participar de estos grupos armados que están en nuestras zonas porque no ven la solución. No ven ingresos, no ven dinero para poder sostener a su familia. Todo este conflicto se ha vuelto tan grande en nuestra zona de que nos obliga muchas veces a no poder cultivar la tierra, a pagar impuestos muy altos, los cuales no nos dejan dinero para que nuestras familias puedan ser sostenidas y muchas veces a pasar hambre en nuestros propios territorios. Y esto nos ha obligado a emigrar a la ciudad, donde la vida para un campesino no es fácil. En contexto general podemos decir que todo esto nos ha afectado en gran manera y que lo único que podemos ver a lo más largo de allá es que podamos tener soluciones prontas para poder recuperar nuestros territorios y poder empoderarnos nuevamente de eso que es lo único que nos puede devolver la paz y la tranquilidad y aún más tener seguridad alimentaria para nuestra familia, porque nos hemos dado cuenta que es el principal factor de guerra y de conflicto en nuestro entorno. La seguridad alimentaria, porque si no tenemos seguridad alimentaria para nuestra familia, nuestros pensamientos se van a derivar y vamos a averiguar, solucionar por maneras que no son las más viables.
Thank you, Ina. I'll also maybe just mention that this is Ina's first time traveling outside of Colombia. So thank you for being with us today. I think you both, Judy and Ina, both of you have mentioned that youth have the resources or have the solutions themselves. What they need perhaps are the resources. And here now I'd like to pass the floor to you, Faisal, as a representative from the Ministry of Livestock from Somalia. Climate change and repeated droughts, again, we're mentioning climate change here. It's hit Somalia's livestock sector in particular, creating very high levels of food insecurity and even forcing people to move. How is the government helping young people turn these challenges into opportunities to build more resilient livelihoods?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As I'm transitioning from youth to adulthood, so I got a lot to say, so you can, thank you very much, and I'm compliment. We're talking about food insecurity, but she raised a good question of land insecurity. I think this was very touching, and thank you for bringing that up. Again, my name is Faisal Ali. If I give you a little bit of background of how the youth opportunities in Somalia for the sector, I wouldn't, of course, the climate change, complexity of climate change, drought, short rainfall, that is, we are all something that we are part of the around region. But in Somalia, if you look at livestock, this is where 60% of our GDP comes from. 40% of employment depends on livestock. So it's a very important sector that has a lot of opportunities. And for youth out there, I think next millionaire, billionaire will come from agriculture and livestock, not in the tech industry. So I think it's a very good sector to look, invest, and to educate. In Somalia, I think climate change and food insecurity, conflict, economic fragility demand fundamental shift from how we as a government or together with a partner respond. And we also must move beyond pragmatic and short-term projects towards a coordinated, integrated, nationally led approach that deliver lasting impact. I think if we were to empower youth, we also have to empower the system and institution, so the way the youth can come in, get the skills, and can employ it in certain ways. Our collective effort also must prioritize young people, especially those in rural communities, by equipping them with the skills, resource, and opportunity to become active agents of resilience and recovery, not just a passive recipient of the aid. Livestock remains a backbone of Somalia economy and a foundation of rural livelihood. Youth-driven agribusiness, these sectors can also create enhanced job security. If I give you a context, in Somalia, last 2 years, 2023, we export 4.5 million live animals. 2024, we export 7 million live animals. So the things that we were looking at now to also, we don't want to export live animals all the time. So we also want to export the meat so we can create jobs, do investment into the slaughterhouses, so skills, it can all build a value chain throughout the livestock. So the intervention, Somalia recently concluded a national transformation plan, the government, just which is pretty much targets the local empowerment, targets the investment driven, also targets the skills. Our 2060 vision also talks about the whole few chapters talks about focusing on how to build a skill. Because if you were to build your vision, you also have to build the skills. And the youth, which is 75% represent our country, this is a huge opportunity. So Somalia faces interconnected climate challenge, insecurity, conflict, and economic fragility. But we need paradigmic shift in short-term response, place youth as center of empowering them with the skills and finance, market access to deliver. For the youth, also we're looking at the how in the livestock alone is a huge value chain. You have a dairy sector, you have a feed and fodder sector, you also have a meat sector. So it's a growing opportunity for the youth to get in with the right investment. The right investment that targets the resilience, that targets skill building, that targets also based on institutional capacity building at the same time. Because once the institution is built, youth skills is built. And also one of the very unique about the livestock, if we give you an overview of the dairy sector, 95% is a women-led business. It's pretty much, this is how they support their families. They walk miles to come to the city center, sell the milk. The other challenge in that area was the lack of cool chain. After 6 p.m., if they cannot sell the milk gets spoiled, that's economic loss. So these are the areas of investment that we'll look at to see how also opportunity for youth, value addition for milk, the cheese processing product. We also still at the same time, we import in almost 250 million milk from overseas. We have close to 60 million live animals. So how we can do this a long-term investment. So the sector in agriculture and livestock, these are the where opportunities youth can be employment, can engage. Not only it's a cool sector to work, it's also you're part of the new vision, the new innovation. I think youth sometimes look into the tech spaces, and they also look at the the jobs that they. But I've seen farmers that are very innovative, very skillful. My background, I'm an electrical engineer, but I'm figured out these sectors are where the opportunities are, and where they're not only it's based on our livelihood, because in a livestock and agri-Somalia is a way of life. Our pastoralists, we are all family of pastoralists. If you have not, my father was, or his grandfather was. So this is the area where I think youth can have a huge opportunity in Somalia, specifically in all the region. The issue of the drought and climate change, in 2022, 2023, Somalia lost close to 3.5 million live animals because of drought, lack of animal feed. So this is an area where we're looking at our investment in the feed sector, which is a huge opportunity for youth, for women, and also that will also increase the milk production. For that, we can also add the milk value chain. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Faisal, and thank you for sharing those perspectives about how important livestock is in Somalia. I think this was also interesting and important to share with us today. There's a lot of opportunity there that we should all be supporting, especially supporting youth to access. So Derek, I will move now to you. You work for the UK government, FCDO, on Syria, a country that is facing huge changes. From your perspective, what support do young people returning to rural areas need, and how can agriculture serve as a driver of recovery and development in these areas? Over to you.
Great, thanks very much. And firstly, can I just say, this is already quite a powerful session, and it's really great to hear the real challenges that youth are facing. It's difficult to hear, but we have to respond to them. So thank you for sharing your difficult stories, and thank you for participating in this session. So yeah, as I was saying, so I focus on Syria, and so maybe I'll take a few moments just to talk a bit about Syria and how we're supporting youth, but also the wider community in Syria. So as many of you probably know, Syria is at a pivotal moment. 10 months since the fall of the brutal Assad regime, and a decade-long conflict has meant that over 1 million Syrians have now returned from abroad. But also another 1.8 million internally displaced have come back to their areas of origin, and many of them are young people. Even though the conflict is broadly over and the regime has gone, it doesn't mean that those challenges have gone away. And actually those that are returning are really returning to quite a catastrophic situation. We see widespread damage to infrastructure and housing, very weak in some places, basic services, deeply disrupted livelihoods. And this year, one of the worst droughts hitting Syria in over 30 years. So challenges are there, but what can we do to help, and particularly try and help rebuild Syrian lives and communities? Some of that is being able to provide targeted humanitarian support. There is a significant humanitarian crisis still going on in Syria, and we shouldn't forget that, even though maybe it's off the news, it's not in the headlines. Last year, over 16 million people were in need of aid. We think next year it's probably going to be about the same, if not more. But in parallel, we also need to be looking at how we can support long-term development support. That's urgently needed. And I think what we're hearing messages today, we can do both humanitarian and longer-term sustainable work together to move countries forward. I'll go through a couple of things that I think communities need, but I think they also have been reflected already in some of the conversations already. Firstly, access to land and agricultural resources is essential. Many returnees, particularly in Syria, but also in many contexts, face legal disputes, unresolved land and property issues, and also just a lack of tools to restart farming. So support to reclaiming land, whether it's legal support, rebuilding irrigation and water systems, and also providing some clear, some basic support on seeds and livelihoods is essential. Second, also been reiterated today, education and training are key. Years of conflict, certainly in Syria, have left deep gaps in knowledge. So vocational training, programs in modern agricultural climate resilient techniques are needed. Agribusiness can really empower youth to innovate and lead. Third, urgent and innovative financial support is required. So, these aren't, I'm not telling you anything new here, but, microloans, grants, cooperative models can really help young farmers invest in their futures. Also, insurance schemes can also protect them from climatic shocks. Fourth, and this is quite big, infrastructure and market access must be rebuilt. There is significant catastrophic damage across Syria. So roads, storage facilities, digital connectivity, all are really vital to make farming viable and profitable. And then fifth, and this is one that is difficult, but I'm up for trying to face it. Donor countries must step up, not only to try and support in the short term, but also to back financially, locally led plans that reflect the priorities of communities. You know, gone are the days of this top-down approach. It has to come from the bottom up. It has to come from communities, and we have to listen to those voices. This will ensure sustainability, ownership, and my hope is that it'll have long-term impact. As we've heard, agriculture itself can be a powerful driver of recovery. It provides food security, creates jobs, and stimulates local economies. Sustainable farming can restore degraded lands and rebuild resilience against drought. But importantly, agriculture can foster social cohesion. It can bring communities together and around shared goals and rebuild trust. And I think that's really a theme that we're hearing throughout today. The UK is supporting a building local resilience programme in Syria that FAO is an integral partner to, and you know we've heard stories from various people across Syria who are really benefiting, whether it's support through. We have a lady in Homs that is currently launching a chemical-free cosmetic business. Cypher in Hama is running a unique olive grill enterprise in high demand. And in Aleppo, Aman's agro-processing project now employs her entire family. So these things can happen if the opportunities are given and provided. You know, these are real stories of transformation, proof that when we invest in young people and agriculture, that we're not just rebuilding livelihoods, we're laying the foundations for long-term peace and resilience. Maybe just a final point. I mean, much of what I've said and what you've heard today isn't new. We know it. What is ringing clear through this session is that we need to give the opportunities to youth and young people. We need to be able to do that, not talk about it, but put it into words, put it into action, not words. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for sharing those insights with us about what is happening currently in Syria. And I think what you've touched on is something that we've heard from various speakers about this connection between emergency response and development and linking it, and not just thinking about the immediate, but thinking about how we can actually implement sustainable interventions that will cause impact in the long term. So I will now move to you, Meshach. In South Sudan, also, overlapping and repeated crises often worsen and amplify food insecurity. How have you seen agriculture as a tool to address both immediate emergency needs and, like I mentioned, while bridging to longer-term recovery and resilience? Over to you.
Oh, thanks so much. And I think being that I'm from FAO, really is to thank all of you for your input on behalf of senior management that we'll do. But in South Sudan, as most of you know, this is a country that has been facing severe challenges over the years. But I want to say that there are three things I think with the young people we need to get quite clear. One is that we come together as young people around understanding the challenge. For instance, in South Sudan, we build a good picture of what the challenge is, especially when it comes to food security. The country needed about 1.4 million metric tons of food. But at that particular time, about 6-7 years ago, the metric tons of food that the country is producing was just at about 600. The rest, then the country has to depend on food aid. So as FAO, with young people, and we come up with this slogan, can South Sudan be able to exit from food aid? As a slogan, and begin to understand that challenge together. As I speak now, last year the country was able to produce 1 million metric tons. That means that we are still 400,000 metric tons away. But this is not a little jump from where we are. We were in a place where in terms of food aid, people could produce their own food for about 3 months. We are now at a point in which people can produce their own food for 5.2 months. We're aiming to get to 7 months. So that means that once we work together on that, understanding the common challenge, then next we have to move to partnership. How do we partner around that? And what's going to be the role of the youth in this partnership? That will lead to the third point, which means it's the innovative action. So partnership, and for the young people, they know very clearly. For example, if we take the example of Bill Gates, 1975, they understood the challenge then. And they came together with his friend Paul Allen. Bill Gates was 19, Paul Allen was 22 years. And they came up with a partnership to come up with Microsoft. And we can see what happened years later. So we trust that once we're able to build that partnership as FAO with the young people, when we look at the contribution of over 400,000 metric tons that have grown in the country, and we dissect what is the contribution of different sectors of the society, disproportionately the women contributed more out of the 400,000. They did more than 60%, while the men and the youth did the rest. If we are to meet that objective of exiting South Sudan from food aid, then proportionately, the work of the youth has to increase within that. But when I speak to them on why the disproportionate figure, how comes the women were able to sort of in a scorecard beat them in terms of that production, I think because we are young people, and I think I'm also maybe graduating away from it, but I can recognize with them, they say we need Beth to make this sector more sexy. We need to digress what this means. What do the youth imply, and what is this that they want this agriculture to be made sexy about, so that their contribution can reach the potential that is needed, so that they could contribute actively towards having this country exit from food aid, because South Sudan has no business being in the food aid business. But peace is important, and as was contributed, peace will contribute to food security, and food security will contribute to peace. But I think as Bill Gates and Paul Allen did, they never waited for someone to come and tell them how to move, because they had a clear vision. So as a food and agriculture organization, we are working with young people to see how can we do this. But we are very, very hopeful that we are able, in years to come, if we can grow up by 10% every year, then in a few years' time, then South Sudan, and with the young people, there will be, proportionately, the women are getting to the limit of the effort that they can put to increase production and productivity in South Sudan. And so we need the young people to pull up their socks, and we are working with them. Some of them are here with me, so that we reach that potential. The potential is huge, and it's the only place where we can increase that. So we believe as a food and agriculture organization that once we understand the challenge together, let us partner, and with the innovative action, then we could progressively move out these countries in conflict out of food aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Meshek. I think what you said moves very nicely to what I'm going to ask next, which is an open question to all of you, which is this idea about how do we partner and how do we exit from an emergency. So given current global challenges, what do you think needs to change in the way actors work together to respond to crises, particularly for youth in rural areas? What solutions can agriculture provide in exiting emergencies? I'm going to ask all of you to, if you would like to provide a response, to answer in 1 minute, because we're running out of time. But I think this is a really important question, and we're really interested in hearing your answers. So Judy, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if you would like to respond first, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. I actually wanted to go first because I believe my response will be very different from everybody else. Just as I was saying, the solution must come from us. And we as a people, we existed way before with our own farming agricultural practices, our indigenous food production systems. And as a people, I think it cuts across almost globally. We've chosen to revitalize our indigenous food production systems because it was good for our health and it was also good for Mother Earth. So if we could put more support towards the kind of food production system that is culturally acceptable to us, that is because sorry, I'm speaking as an indigenous person, no offense. We indigenous people, we believe we are connected to the Mother Earth. So it is our business to make sure that our own health is okay and Mother Earth is okay, but while at it, ensuring that we are food secure. So personally, to respond to your question, I would say strengthening the revitalization of our indigenous food production systems to allow us to produce food in our own terms and food that supports our own cultural identity and self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. I think we all agree that it makes sense that we would want to make sure that Mother Earth is healthy. She's enabling us to actually farm, to engage in agriculture. Without that, this would not be possible. Maybe Ina, would you like to come in and respond?
Una de las principales soluciones que nosotros hemos venido trabajando y que se ha dado resultado en poca medida, porque no nos ha cobijado todo el territorio, pero que nos ha devuelto en pocas familias esa maravillosa esperanza de ver de que podemos nuevamente cultivar nuestros campos, es tomando acciones anticipatorias, pero esto se lleva a base de un conocimiento específico. No solo de recursos, sino de conocimiento. El recurso es importante, pero una persona con conocimiento tiene un manejo adecuado del recurso, a lo cual lo va a trascender a tener una seguridad más adelante, porque sabemos qué hacer con el recurso y cómo transformarlo para que pueda ser sostenible a nuestros medios de vida. Con esto que nosotros hemos ido implementando en pequeñas zonas a través de muchas ayudas, entre ellas la de la FAO, nos hemos dado cuenta que los jóvenes hemos vuelto a recuperar esa confianza que tenían nuestros abuelos en que nuestro campo nos puede dar para sobrevivir y sobrevivir bien. Nos puede ayudar a que podamos tener familias seguras y a que nuestros hijos puedan pensar de una manera diferente. Entonces, ¿cómo vemos nosotros o qué pensamos nosotros para que puedan seguir siendo estas oportunidades mejores? Que los gobiernos lleguen, que no los gobiernos, las organizaciones lleguen directamente a nuestros territorios, a nuestras comunidades, conozcan cuáles son nuestras problemáticas y de ahí puedan impartir a brindar soluciones a través del conocimiento, sin dejar al cabo suelto de que las inversiones económicas son muy importantes, pero que el conocimiento es el que trasciende a que las acciones económicas se puedan dar a un buen futuro con buena respuesta como los hemos estado haciendo ahora. Hoy por hoy, con estas acciones, los jóvenes han vuelto a creer que en el campo pueden tener sustento, que el conflicto se puede alejar de nuestras regiones con todas estas nuevas transformaciones, con todos estos nuevos conocimientos y con todas nuestras nuevas acciones que nos ayudan a anticiparnos, porque la violencia siempre va a estar. Las inundaciones se han vuelto recurrentes y todas estas catástrofes naturales son día a día más exuberantes y más penetrantes a nuestras regiones. ¿Qué debemos hacer o qué estamos haciendo? Anticiparnos. ¿Anticiparnos a qué? A que podamos tener una seguridad alimentaria para nuestras familias, a que podamos conocer nuestro territorio y a que podamos conocer cómo debemos trabajar nuestras tierras para poder tener productos y así no solo ya alimentarnos nosotros, sino nosotros mismos empezarnos a construir una base sólida económicamente que pueda tener a nuestra familia segura. Entonces, dos cosas que por lo menos nos gustaría que llegaran a nuestro territorio. Uno, entidades comprometidas, pero que vayan directamente al territorio, a esas comunidades lejos, aledañas, conozcan cuáles son nuestras problemáticas para que así puedan impartir desde el conocimiento las principales soluciones. Y dos, que sea un apoyo económico efectivo, duradero, para que nosotros podamos seguir empoderándonos de todo eso que nos ha ayudado a subsistir, pero de una manera más agradable y convertirlo realmente en algo propio, que hace mucho tiempo se nos ha perdido y que los jóvenes ya no creíamos en esto, pero con estas nuevas soluciones estamos empezando a creer, porque vemos que podemos sostener a nuestras familias y podemos tener un mejor ambiente amigable, porque nosotros como campesinos somos del campo y la ciudad nos da demasiado duro, porque estamos acostumbrados a vivir, como decía nuestra compañera, de la naturaleza, de la tierra, y una buena tierra con un buen cuidado nos puede sustentar no solo a los del campo, sino también a los de la ciudad.
Thank you so much, Ina. My earring is stuck because of how struck I was by what you said. I think we should end the panel with that. I hope the others don't mind, but I think Ina's statement was so powerful that I would like to now pass the floor on to my colleagues to move on to the next section. Xavier and Clara, over to you. And thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists for all of their interventions, for their reflections, and for providing such important insights with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, and a big thank you to all of our speakers today for your great interventions. We've heard it clearly from all of you. In the face of conflict, climate change, disasters, displacement, and other challenges, young people are among the most affected. But they are also part of the solution. Agriculture is not just a lifeline. It's an opportunity for recovery, for resilience, for self-reliance, for peace, and for youth empowerment. But now we'd like to hear from you, from the audience. As Aisha said, my name is Xavier Goiria, and together with my colleague Clara, we'll guide this next part of the event. We've called this part a reflection session. And in this section, we would like to hear from you two things. On the one hand, we'd like you to ask your questions to any of our speakers today, not just our panelists, but also Chen Kwak, Baha, and Yuka, who joined us online earlier. And on the other hand, would also like to hear from you your reflections on the main question that we've proposed earlier, which I'm going to repeat now. In crisis context, how can agriculture be a driver for recovery, resilience, and youth empowerment? Please take a moment to write down your reflections in the papers that you have in front of you. If you don't have a paper, you can raise your hand. Oh, my colleague is actually already giving papers to those who don't have it, so that's great. And now let's take about 30 seconds to reflect, and then we'll have just 10 minutes for the Q&A, unfortunately. Well, let's just say that. No sé cuánto. Okay, time is over. Time is up. Unfortunately, we only have 10 minutes for the Q&A. We're a bit late, but we'll have a couple of questions and reflections from the audience. So whoever is ready, you can raise your hands and ask your question or share your reflection with us. So let's start. Who wants to come in first?
And that applies as well in the group chat. If you have any questions, our colleague will let us know. But first, we need someone to break the ice. A brave volunteer. No pressure. Yes, please. You have the mic in front of you.
Thanks, everyone. This was fantastic. What a great panel. So thank you very much for the organizers. And a great topic that needs a lot of reflection and much more work and dialogue. My name is Eduardo, and I work on early childhood development in emergencies. So the topic was very relevant to me. I always feel we talk a lot about intergenerational participation, which are, as your deputy director said, not the future, the present. The elderly, the young, the adults, the ones transitioning to adulthood, and definitely the children also. And my reflection comes a little bit from my experience in a couple of the places that have been presented here and the crisis, South Sudan, where I have spent some time, and Myanmar. And listening to the youth representative, I was thinking on my time in both countries, how attractive it has been for the youth, the glamour of weapons and violence, how it has been so attractive that has detracted young people and communities from the more traditional ways of living. And so that's a little bit of a maybe existential question for me, because living in many places in conflict. But I am here in the forum, and I felt it's great to show the glamour of FAO and development and peace to youth, to the chapters, and to the world. And I feel also that in some of those countries, and particularly with ex-soldiers, they do want to find that glamour, to find that sense of purpose, of peace, agricultural production, new ways of living. How do we make those alternatives that sometimes are lacking, as Awan mentioned, how do we make those alternatives not only available, but also attractive? A sense of new ways of doing things that are going to be the drive for youth, for a different way of living in communities, being attached to the land, and being in peace. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. I think that's a great intervention and super relevant to our panel today, to our discussion today. Anyone else has any reflection or question?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much, first of all, to all the panelists. That was a great session. First of all, as a youth advocate myself, but also as a newbie here at FAO as a social protection and resilience intern. And in this sense, in this position, I kind of consider that long-term resilience, shock response, social protection can furnish the tools to restart, recover, or invest even in agri-food from the youth perspective. I've been working in these weeks on Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan, and I've seen like the very first positive impacts that social protection tools can have. And I really love to have a reflection from you, working on the field or being more expert than I am, because I see that cash transfer inputs or vouchers and public works can indeed be a good tool to allow youth to restart community, invest in farming, or also exiting emergencies and earn an income in the very first phases of emergency response and build a sustainable future for the community and themselves, accessing the markets or combining other SP social protection tools to allow youth from responding to emergencies and building into entrepreneurship and independence. So I'd like to have your reflection on this if you can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will now open the floor to response to both questions that were posed. Maybe we can start with social protection. I see Meshach looking at me, so he might want to answer.
Okay, thanks. First, on the issue of weapons, definitely for countries that have been under conflict, weapons are rampant. I've never seen so much guns in my life as I saw in South Sudan, because especially when we do FAO vaccinates we do vaccination and treatment of about 10 million cows every year. So we are really on the ground. So the issue of weapons, those are a problem. In South Sudan every week, particularly due to cattle rustling, because with people having arms, young people having arms in their hands, and people have various temperament level, then something small can trigger someone to fire. And that creates problem. And so every week we have deaths caused by that. So how, when these countries transition, are able to handle, especially at the political level, the arms in the hands of the people is a very, very difficult issue. We are handling it at assisting the government at the UN level, but it's a difficult one. The best is that these countries don't slide into conflict, that they have to now invest in getting arms out of the people. It becomes very, very difficult, and South Sudan is one of them. On social protection, for sure it's one of the methodologies in which is used to raise our people up. But for us, one of the greatest success is when we are able to see people graduate out of it. In 6 years that I've been in South Sudan as a FAO rep, I've seen young people, I've seen women that have been able to graduate from lining up for these protections. It makes me the happiest person, the happiest representative, that you don't need protection, but you can protect yourself. So the way we are able to design the various aspects so that we do not embed dependency in them is quite vital. And unfortunately, from my own experience where I sit, cash is the most difficult for people to graduate off it. And I think also with some of us, or some of us that have children and all that, you have to be careful. So cash, you have to think carefully. Otherwise, I've seen the lowest graduation rates, and people don't want to volunteer to graduate out of cash. I would also not want to graduate. If FAO is giving me some additional cash, why do I want to graduate out of it? So it's the most difficult to graduate out of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meshach. I understand we have online participants that would also like to answer. I think in order of raised hands, Yuka, you had your hand up. Would you mind keeping it to 1 minute, perhaps?
Sure. I just wanted to respond. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I just wanted to respond to the question raised by the person online about how ICT helps. What I'd like to answer is ICT is essential, particularly in high conflict areas, because we cannot send people to these locations to help the communities. So we use ICT sources, for example, for fisheries advice as extension services for fisheries, for crops, and for livestock, so that the people who we cannot access physically, we can access through phones, through we also have this tablet that we have been distributing to the fisheries communities and to livestock communities on advice, on time, real-time advice to the communities. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuka. And I am being informed that time has caught us, unfortunately, but you have your paper. So if you have any other questions that you feel have not been answered, you can use the little paper not only to write your solution, but also to write some questions. We will collect them in a suggestion box at the outside of the room. So remember, Diana is waving the suggestion box at the back, but remember to place your suggestion in the box so we can use them to inform our ideas in terms of program. And I think now that time is up. I also would like to say that this is not the end, because you can continue this discussion over coffee break, but also during the side event that we have planned for Thursday. This is focused on Indigenous people. It will be titled Indigenous People in Humanitarian Crisis, next Thursday at 10:30 in the Lavu Indigenous People Territory. Thank you very much. I pass the floor back to Natalie, and we ask for 5 more of your minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're asking for a little bit more of your time so that we can hear from our Director of Emergency and Resilience for the closing remarks, Rain Paulson. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I'll keep this very short. And Faisal, you referred to transitioning from youth to adulthood. For some of us, that's wishful thinking and is in the past distant. It doesn't go the other way. In fact, I feel like a bit of an interloper here, making any kind of closing comments at a youth event. But colleagues, much more seriously, this was, I think someone already used the word incredibly powerful. I'm not going to try and summarize everything that's been said, but one of the things that struck me is, you know, we often talk about agriculture and the work we do in technical terms. And what struck me from all of the interventions today was how what we're focused on in this space is so much more than that, right? And these terms that were referred to by our esteemed panelists around hope, around identity, around a future, around a vision for what comes next. This is what agriculture is all about, and this is what youth in the agricultural space can deliver with our support, and this is where we need to mobilize attention. And the asks, I think, are crystal clear, and it's about how we collectively support, how we mobilize. Beth talked about, you know, the difficulty that so many of us have with this word beneficiaries. Here we're talking about something completely different, right? It is about putting those who are both the present and the future at the heart of decision making, and the rest of us seeing the right ways to support that moving ahead. If that message and if that call, colleagues, is what you walk away from this session retaining and thinking about and trying to action, then I think the people who've done an outstanding job of putting this together really have done a great, great service to this topic, colleagues. So that's really where I wanted to leave with some summary thoughts. Right? Let's focus on how we respond to what youth are telling us. Let's focus on how we get out of their way and allow them to provide solutions. And let's focus on mobilizing the attention around those pieces. And I was so struck by all of these interventions that I really don't want to spoil that taste in my mouth and those words in ears with more from my side. Just a huge word of thanks, colleagues. There'll be thanks given to the many people that have been responsible for organizing this. Let me just say, at the heart of this was the OER youth group and several members of the OER youth group that you've seen, and Aisha and Nat and Zabi and Clara, I think you've done a fantastic job on organizing this. You've been supported by You've also been supported by some young and heart colleagues. I'm going to not mention their names out of respect for them, but thank you for your participation. Thank you so much to the panelists and those that took the time to share very deeply held personal experiences. Thank you for giving that to all of us. Now it's on us to act. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much. I won't repeat what Rain has said. Many thanks goes to many different people for the different things that they've done. Thank you all for being part of this discussion today. And I just want to end this discussion today by saying that I've heard it said that we cannot keep on doing the same thing and expect different results. Something must change. And each one of us in this room today has a role to play in driving that change. Today we've heard about how agriculture can be a driving force for youth in crisis contexts. So let's turn the conversation into action. Youth are not just the future, we've heard today. They're not just the future. They are the present drivers of agri-food transformation and innovation, and the next generation of decision makers. So let's each commit to doing our part. FAO, governments, partners, and youth, all working together to reimagine agriculture, build more efficient, inclusive, and sustainable food systems for all. Together, we can make the change we want to see. So on behalf of the Office of Emergency and Resilience here at FAO, we wish you an excellent afternoon. Thank you very much.